Welcome to Secret Affairs. In today's video, I'm opening up a chapter of my life that didn't begin with chaos or drama. It began with something much quieter. The kind of quiet that settles in slowly, like a shadow creeping across the room. Looking back, maybe the silence should have warned me. Maybe I should have known that when things feel too calm, something is shifting beneath the surface. But back then, I was too wrapped up in my routines to notice anything unusual, too trusting to imagine that someone I loved could be moving differently behind my back. For most of my adult life, I believed in stability. I built my world around consistency, a predictable home, a predictable schedule, a relationship I thought was solid enough to withstand anything life could throw at us. I wasn't the kind of person who expected surprises. I liked knowing where things were headed. But life doesn't work that way. It has a strange talent for waiting until you're comfortable, then flipping the entire script on you without warning. It all started on a Tuesday morning. Nothing dramatic, just another day like any other. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the steam from my coffee rising in slow curls, carrying a warmth that made me believe everything in my life was still the same. I remember glancing out the window, watching the neighborhood slowly wake up the joggers, the early dog walkers, the couple across the street arguing over who misplaced the car keys again. Everything felt ordinary, normal, safe. And then my partner walked in. There was nothing unusual about the way they entered the room. No storming, no tension, no dramatic sighs. They moved quietly, almost too quietly, like they were trying not to disturb the air between us. That alone should have told me something was wrong. They sat across from me, their hands wrapped around a mug they didn't even sip from. Their eyes kept drifting toward the window, then back to me, then away again. It was the kind of restlessness I'd never seen in them before. But I didn't question it. I should have, but I didn't. Instead, I asked if they were okay, and they gave me one of those quick, dismissive answers. The kind meant to end a conversation, not start one. Something inside me shifted for a moment, but I ignored it. I told myself they were tired, stressed, distracted, anything but the truth that was about to unravel my life in ways I never imagined. I had no idea that morning was the beginning of the end of the version of my reality I'd been holding on to for years. We'd been together long enough that I believed I knew them fully. The way they laughed when something truly caught them off guard, the way they paced when thinking through something important, the way they always tapped their foot when they were trying to hide something. That tapping used to be endearing. That morning, it was faint, but it was there. A soft, rhythmic pattern under the table. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't recognize it then, but later, that sound would replay in my mind like a warning I failed to hear. The day continued normally on the surface, but small things kept tugging at my attention. They checked their phone more than usual. They stepped outside to take calls they claimed were work-related calls that never seemed to end. They avoided eye contact during small talk. They smiled at the wrong moments. People think heartbreak hits you all at once, like a punch in the chest, but sometimes it comes in pieces, tiny. Sharp fragments that you don't understand until you're already bleeding from them. That evening, we sat on the couch like we always did. The TV was on, casting soft, flickering light across the room, but neither of us was really watching. I kept glancing over at them, noticing how stiff they looked. Like they were practicing a confession in their head, but couldn't commit to saying it out loud. For the first time in years, I felt like I was sitting next to a stranger wearing the face of someone I loved. I asked again if they were okay. This time, they said yes, but their voice cracked. It's not loud, not obvious, just enough for me to finally feel a whisper of fear in my chest. Something wasn't right. I knew it. They knew I knew it. But neither of us acknowledged it. We just sat there, pretending we were still the same to people we'd always been. Pretending the ground beneath us wasn't shifting. 2 days passed like that, them acting strange, me pretending not to see it, the tension growing like thick fog between us. And then came the night everything snapped. We were eating dinner, and the atmosphere felt so heavy I could practically taste the anxiety in the air. They barely touched their food. I barely swallowed mine. Every minute stretched longer than the one before it. I felt like I was holding my breath the entire meal. When they finally set their fork down, I knew something was coming. Their hands trembled slightly, and their eyes kept darting toward the hallway, like they were waiting for some invisible signal to push them into whatever confession they were holding back. Then, without warning, they looked at me and said the words that shattered the calm I thought I understood. "I need to tell you something." It felt like the entire room froze. My heart didn't speed up, it stopped completely. Time hesitated, as if it wanted to spare me from what was coming next. But life never hesitates for long. I swallowed hard and nodded, trying to prepare myself without knowing what I was preparing for. Maybe they were quitting their job. Maybe they were sick. Maybe it was something about their family. The mind invents 1,000 explanations when it wants to avoid the truth. But the truth was already sitting at the edge of the table, waiting to be acknowledged. They opened their mouth, then closed it, their eyes filled with something that looked like regret, or maybe guilt. I still didn't know. When they finally spoke, their voice was so quiet I had to lean in to hear them. "I haven't been honest with you." That was it. 7 words that sliced through the illusion of normalcy I had built my life around. 7 words that began unraveling every memory, every routine, every assumption I had trusted. I felt my stomach twist, but I stayed silent. I wanted them to keep talking. I needed them too. They took a shaky breath and continued. "There's something I've been hiding. And you deserve to know." My heart thudded so loudly I could feel the pulse in my throat. My hands went cold. Everything around me felt distant, as if I had stepped outside my body and was watching the scene unfold from somewhere above. That's the thing about betrayal. Even before you hear the full story, your body senses it. It reacts before your mind can catch up. I asked them what they meant. My voice didn't sound like mine. They looked down at their hands, fingers interlocked tightly enough to turn their knuckles white. Their shoulders trembled. For a moment, I saw the person I thought I knew, vulnerable, nervous, human. And then the next moment I remembered they were the same person hiding something from me. "I met someone," they finally whispered. "The world didn't crash. It didn't explode. It didn't fall apart in one dramatic moment. Instead, everything inside me went eerily still, like the silence before a storm hits with full force. My mind didn't understand immediately. It refused to. It clung to confusion as a shield. Someone met someone how? Met someone when? Met someone when? The questions tangled together, overlapping in my chest until they didn't even sound like words anymore. Before I could speak, they kept talking. It wasn't planned. I didn't go looking for anything. It just happened. People love to say those words. It just happened. Like falling into betrayal is the same as tripping on uneven pavement. Like real choices weren't made along the way. I felt heat rush to my face, but my hands were freezing. My chest tightened in a way that made it hard to breathe. I stared at them, waiting for them to take it back, to say they meant something else, anything else, but they didn't. Their eyes brimmed with tears, but there was something else there too. Something worse, a kind of relief. As if telling me, lifted a weight off their shoulders, and in doing that, they placed it directly onto mine. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there, frozen as the person I thought was my safe place slowly dismantled everything I believed in, and that was only the beginning. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The room felt suffocating, like the air had thickened just enough to make breathing a conscious effort. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant ticking of the wall clock, even the soft rustle of fabric when they shifted in their chair. But all those sounds felt far away, almost muted, drowned out by the rush of blood pounding in my ears. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what I was allowed to feel. Shock does that. It holds you still, locks your voice somewhere deep in your chest, and forces you to sit with a reality you weren't prepared to face. Their confession echoed in my mind over and over, each repetition cutting deeper than the last. I met someone. Such a simple sentence, but powerful enough to shatter the life I thought I had. I finally found my voice, though it felt weak and distant, like it belonged to someone else. I asked them what they meant, how they met, when it started, why they didn't tell me the moment things began slipping into something dangerous. My questions came out quieter than I intended, almost a calm, but inside, a storm was raging. At first they hesitated. They looked down at their hands again, tracing invisible shapes against their palm, anything to avoid meeting my eyes. Maybe they were trying to protect me from the details. Maybe they were trying to protect themselves. Or maybe, and this thought stung the most, they were still protecting whoever this someone was. When they finally spoke again, their voice trembled. It started a few months ago, they whispered. Before I even realized what was happening, that sentence made my stomach twist so violently I had to grip the edge of the table just to stay grounded. A few months, not days, not weeks, months. All that time, they had been coming home to me, smiling at me, sharing meals with me, lying next to me at night while something else was unfolding behind closed doors. And I hadn't seen it. Or maybe I had, but I didn't want to believe it. They continued talking, each word landing like a punch I never saw coming. They told me they met this person through a work-related event. They said it started innocently, small conversations, shared frustrations, harmless compliments. Nothing serious, they insisted. But I knew something they didn't understand. Betrayal doesn't begin with a moment. It begins with a decision to cross a line no matter how thin it is. They explained how small talk turned into deeper conversations, how those conversations turned into something they didn't expect, how they found themselves looking forward to those interactions more than they should have. They admitted they didn't push back when things started drifting into dangerous territory. They let the momentum take them somewhere I was never supposed to discover. Listening to them felt like standing outside in freezing rain, exposed, helpless, shivering from more than just the cold. Every sentence made me wonder what else I didn't know, what other moments I missed. What pieces of my life were quietly slipping away while I was busy believing everything was fine. I wanted to interrupt. I wanted to scream. Wanted to ask why I wasn't enough. But I didn't. Not yet. I let them continue. I needed to hear the truth, even if it destroyed me in the process. They told me the emotional connection grew first. The late-night conversations, the shared laughs, the subtle flirtation that became harder and harder to deny. They claimed they never intended to cross any physical boundaries, that they tried to stop it before it went too far. But when someone says, "I tried," all it means is they didn't try hard enough. And then finally, they admitted it. They crossed the line. The moment those words left their lips, something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, it was a quiet break, the kind that happens deep in the foundation where no one can see it, but everything above it begins to crumble. I asked them how far things went, but they didn't answer right away. Their eyes filled with tears, and they shook their head, as if saying it out loud would solidify the betrayal in a way they couldn't handle. I asked again, my voice sharper this time, because I needed to know what I was dealing with. I needed the truth, even if it burned. Finally, they whispered the answer I had been dreading. It wasn't just emotional. My heart sank. My fingers went numb. It felt like someone had placed a heavy stone in the center of my chest and told me to breathe around it. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to steady myself, but nothing helped. The pain was raw, immediate, and overwhelming. I opened my eyes and stared at them, feeling like I was looking at a stranger. A person who wore the face of someone I loved, but moved with the guilt of someone I didn't recognize. I asked them why. Why risk everything we had built? Why step outside the relationship instead of speaking to me? Why let someone else fill the spaces that were supposed to be ours? Their answer didn't comfort me. It didn't soften the blow. In fact, it made everything worse. "I don't know," they said. "I didn't mean to hurt you, but intentions don't erase actions. Accidents don't happen repeatedly over months. And betrayal doesn't unfold without choices." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling because looking at them hurt too much. My mind raced through every memory of the last few months, the nights they came home late, the excuses, The sudden interest in their appearance, the moments they seemed distant for no reason. All the signs I ignored because I trusted them. All the warnings I silenced because I believed in us. And now, here I was, sitting face to face with the truth I had been too blind to see. After a long stretch of silence, I finally spoke. But my voice wasn't filled with anger. It wasn't loud or harsh. It was soft, painfully soft. Because when your heart breaks, the pieces don't fall with noise. They fall with quiet acceptance. I told them I needed the full truth. No more half answers. No more shaking voices. No more protecting my feelings. I asked them directly how long the physical side continued, if it was more than once, if it was planned or impulsive. They ever felt guilty while coming home to me afterward? Each question made them shrink a little more in their seat. Their eyes brimmed with guilt they couldn't hide anymore. And then, slowly, the rest spilled out. The physical aspect didn't happen just once. It wasn't a single moment of weakness. It happened more than once. Enough times for it to become routine, comfortable, familiar. That was the part that broke me. Not the first time, but the fact that there was a second and a third and more. It's because a mistake repeated isn't a mistake. It's a choice, okay? They told me they ended it weeks ago. They told me they realized they didn't want to lose me. They told me the guilt was eating them alive. But none of that mattered in that moment. Not to me. You don't get points for stopping when you've already crossed the line. You don't get redemption by confessing only after everything is already destroyed. I sat there staring at them, feeling something inside me shift. The love I had always carried so openly began to fold inward, retreating into a part of me that no longer wanted to feel anything. My mind replayed every moment of the last few months, now rewritten with the truth. Every kiss felt tainted. Every laugh felt fake. Every memory felt contaminated. Finally, I stood up. Not out of anger, not out of impulse, but because I needed space to breathe. They reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. Their hand froze midair before falling into their lap. The look on their face told me they understood, maybe for the first time, the magnitude of what they had done. I walked toward the window, staring out into the night sky, letting the cool glass of the pane ground me. The street outside was quiet, peaceful, unaware that my world had just been flipped upside down. Cars passed by, people walked their dogs, streetlights flickered, everything continued like nothing had happened. But inside that house, everything had changed. When I turned back to face them, my voice was steady, calm, too calm for the chaos raging inside me. I told them I needed time to think, time to understand, time to breathe without feeling like the weight of their betrayal was crushing me. But before I could finish speaking, they interrupted something they rarely did and said words I wasn't expecting. Words that sent a fresh wave of confusion crashing through me. I ended things with them because I realized something about myself. I frowned, not understanding. They took a deep breath, gathering courage for something even heavier than the confession of an affair. When they spoke again, the room seemed to shrink around us. "There's more you need to know,"